So yes, indeed, we're going to soon start the discussion. I would like to thank you already for joining. I think indeed 2:01. But let's start. Indeed, welcome to all. I'm Julien Dijon, Policy Director at Housing Europe. And indeed, welcome to the Policy Lab of the Shape EU project. Policy Lab means that we're going to have a moment to exert collective thinking around policy recommendations coming from the project Shape EU. Of course, it means that we're first going to explain or remind everyone about the Shape EU project, which is indeed a quite specific, quite peculiar project, because it's not a Horizon Europe project. It's a single market program project, which gives this project a special status in a way, because we want to tackle different dimensions with Shape EU. Integrated district renovation is at the center, with the view of achieving multiple objectives. To refresh our mind about what the project is about, we will have my colleague Jean Gonsalves, Director of Innovation at Housing Europe, that will explain again in a nutshell what is the project about and when we are in the project in terms of deliverables and milestones. After this presentation, we will enter into the core of the discussion this afternoon, which is indeed discussing the draft policy recommendation that we have produced so far. And we will do it in 3 steps. The first step will be around the sustainable financing tools. The second step will be about the regulations. And the last step will be about the local partnerships and local dialogue. Each of the steps will be introduced by a speaker coming from the Shape EU Consortium. And of course, the point of the Policy Lab is to have the opportunity to discuss and to interact. That's why after each recommendation, we will have the opportunity to, or we will give you the opportunity to provide your feedback in 2 forms. First, through what is called the menti.com platform, where basically you will have the opportunity to write comments or words or concepts that you think are useful or relevant for the recommendation in question. And then you will be given the opportunity to open your mic and further explain why you put such a word or make other relevant comment related to that. So after each recommendation, there will be this moment of discussion so that we can really, at the end of the process, have what we call robust recommendation linked to a quality process of collective thinking. And we will end the 90-minute session with a quick wrap-up and also some information about what the next steps will be for Shape EU and heading towards the end of this project. So I'm now happy to give the floor. I mean, just also for information that, of course, the chat, as usual with Zoom, is open. You can always do your thought on the chat. But the interest of using the menti.com platforms later on is that we will, in a way, react to your recommendation live, in a way. So that's, I think, something that could be a bit more interesting. But feel free to add links to, some studies or any references you think would be interesting for the discussion. The session is recorded, as you know it's often the case for this kind of session, because indeed it's part of the European project, and it would be useful for us afterwards to come back to our discussion and finalize the policy recommendation. So now I will give the floor to my colleague João Gonçalves, Director of Renovation, Housing Europe, to explain in a nutshell again what ShapeEU is about and why is it a special project, and where we are in let's say in the development of the project. So Jean, the floor is yours. Thank you. So yeah, your microphone is off.
Hello again.
Yeah. Hello.
You can hear me now, yeah? All right, so yeah, I'm going to explain a bit what is the SHAPE, or European Affordable Housing Consortium. So our mission, quite basically, is to support the local actors across Europe in their planning and managing building renovation projects. And the scope of this project, of this consortium, is threefold. So we are talking about social and affordable housing in the different manifestations of this concept. We are talking also about district level renovation and construction as well. I think we can have as well construction. And also we are talking about renovation or construction that goes beyond business as usual. So we are not talking about the renovation that you already do, basically. They want to go a bit further, and I will explain why and how. For that, let me just mention the partners. So we are 10. Besides my own organization, Housing Europe, we also have Energy Cities, Eurocities, also here, James Thorogood, ECTP, GNE Finance is also here, Paula somewhere, I think she's there. ECUL from Estonia, Le USH, Federation from France, Leacu Abitanti Federation from Italy, VVH from the Flemish part of Belgium, and the University of Delft. So we all together, we have the mission that I just mentioned to you to support local actors across Europe. And our job, evidently, is to decarbonize our housing stock, to reach the targets that the European Union, all of us have committed in the EU Green Deal a few years ago. So we have a considerable task ahead of us to renovate the district, to reduce the carbon emissions, but also there's more than that, obviously. We have a number of technical solutions that already exist here, a number of avenues that we can pursue. This is a list of them that we just listed here in this slide. Of course, there's a lot to say here, but this is just to say that as far as technical challenges are concerned, we have a lot of technical solutions, let's say. But of course, we know more than it's just decarbonizing our stock with the technical solutions. So in the past, we have done some mistakes. We have been worried with not the full picture, so just one dimension. For example, building enough houses to house the people in need, those homes. But of course, these have come with consequences. So we believe that we should learn from these mistakes and think about rebuilding or renovating our houses in a more integrated way. So also thinking about the neighborhood, not just the building that we think. So this is all like the Russians doll there. So they have the technical challenges, but also have the integration challenges of that technology. We also have to look at the tenants. We also have to look at the community. And then we have the policy level challenges. That this is the actual reason that we are all reunited here in this call. So we aim for what we mean by a comprehensive view of a renovation. So it's not only about the technical issues of decarbonizing the housing stock. It's also, I have some examples here. We also talking about the issue of affordability, the issue of revitalizing or developing the communities, access to housing, collaboration between the different actors, have their housing providers, healthcare, educational institutions. They all have an important stake in this process of revitalizing the community, and of course, the housing policy. Of course, we could just hand out guides on how to renovate our houses, and everybody throughout Europe would follow that guide precisely, but of course, as we all know, this is not how it works. So no size fits all. So we have to take into account the heterogeneity of the housing systems, of the locations, of the different climates throughout Europe. There's also, of course, different options. So if I'm a social housing manager in Portugal, where I come from, in one city, I could have a different options or different plan than my colleague in another city. So we have diverging preferences, and we should also consider this. And of course, we need to understand the historical background of the context that we are involved in. So it's not about transplanting solutions, even if they have fantastic results elsewhere, but to understand and to integrate that solution in the local milieu, but primarily with the residents, which should be our first concern. And this is where the European Affordable Housing Consortium, or SHAPE EU for short, comes in. And what are we doing to provide the toolkit or the toolbox to the different local actors to renovate their neighborhoods and going a bit the extra mile? So first of all, we are collecting a lot of information, so good practices, regulatory frameworks at work, barriers, opportunities, even at the level of the policy. We're also collecting knowledge, and by this I mean we have a pool of experts that have gone through these renovations at the neighborhood level, and we ask them to be available to help their peers and whichever problem they are facing, and if you can help them with the solution as well. We are also organizing events. Actually, there is only one missing. We already organized a number of events, including a boot camp, a policy level summit, tech camp, so more related to the technology solutions that we have. And in February, we will be holding the final conference in Brussels, where we'll discuss also and present the results of the project. And fourthly, but not least, we also have a community of common interests of discussion of practices. I will talk about these different strands of the project. So, of course, if you like to have access to our pool of experts, you can receive this really tailored support for your registry renovation project so that you can go further, go the extra mile. We have there the picture of one of these meetings that took place already, and it's been quite successful. I think the people that have asked for this one-on-one consultation with a European expert have said good things about the support, the experience that they received. So feel free to also apply as a lighthouse district. This page is in our website. You just look SHAPE EU on the Google, and I believe you will end up there. Registrations are open, by the way. And then, of course, what is this accumulation of knowledge or information that we are holding? So basically, we are using the good practices across Europe to inspire other housing managers, municipalities, companies, and so that they can develop their own plan. So I'll just have a few examples of what these solutions are. We have, of course, technical solutions. This is an example from Brussels in Belgium of an industrialized renovation. So this is basically, it's a very beneficial in terms of economies of scale. And there's also an added benefit that it minimizes the days on site. In this case, in particular, they just had 9 days, the workers in the house itself, because it was all assembled elsewhere. We also have, of course, the social innovation, or the social aspect of the good practices. And we have an example, for example, from Berlin, where the plan for the renovation and the finished building is there in the picture, included the opinions and the wants and the wills of the residents themselves. In this case, it was cooperative, so they were also owners of the building. We also have what we call process innovation or methodological innovations. This is quite innovative indeed. It's from Sweden, from Örebro. it was called the Home Builders Initiative, and basically the municipality and the social housing manager, they asked the contractor, in this case Skanska company there in Sweden, to involve the residents in the renovation works themselves. So it was part of the procurement that the trainees would come also from residents that would be interested in receiving the traineeship, obviously, from Skanska. So this is a great example of owning the renovation, because they were involved in the actual works itself. So this is quite an interesting example. Of course, from all these good practices, we take lessons learned. We ask the leaders to also explain in their own voice what they did, and how it could be translated to other contexts. And this is just an example of lessons learned that it's in our good practices handbook that you can also find in our website. I mentioned the community of practice, and here it is. We have it ongoing right now. It's called Renovate Together Forum. Name still to be decided. You have the link there. I will obviously share this presentation at the end. But if you go to LinkedIn and write Renovate Together Forum, you can also end up there. So basically, this is a community on LinkedIn, where you can talk with all these people that are involved in this very interesting project. You can also share your own practice and collaboration opportunities. So, of course, as a social network, the more people will join, the better it is. So I really encourage you to check this Renovate Together forum in LinkedIn. We are also drafting blueprints to create those thriving districts following the integrated approach that I mentioned. So not only the technical, but process innovation, the social innovation of residents, all of this combined in a handbook that you can use to answer questions like the one that you see on screen. So how can you use industrialized renovation? How do you implement circular economy principles? This digestion issue, etc., etc. There are a lot of questions that we are trying to answer in these blueprints. Basically, it's a guideline where you have these questions, and then you have, I wouldn't say an answer, but examples of what other people have done that were more or less successful to answer that question. These blueprints will be ready by January and will be presented in the final conference in Brussels, which will be taking place on the 21st of February 2024, in the Committee of the Regions. So it will be in the morning. Besides presenting the results, the outcomes, these publications that I mentioned, we will also obviously present these policy recommendations that we'll be discussing here today in this policy lab. So yeah, check all this information in our website, shape@affordablehousing.eu, or just look in Google for Shape Affordable Housing. Surely you will get, hopefully you will get to this website. All right, Julien, this is my presentation, and I give you the word now.
Well, thank you very much, Joel. I think it was very good to remind people of what the project is about. Why is it a quite different project? Indeed, we are not here to test a specific technological solution. We are here basically to support and incentivize local stakeholders to go, let's say, beyond the extra mile, or to do beyond the business as usual, as we say, and indeed at the core of it, renovation is there, affordable, and renovation is there, but indeed the idea is to have a broader perspective. It's at the same time simple, but also very complicated. That's why the blueprints are here to have a kind of detailed approach, but a replicable detailed approach on how we can do that. So indeed, as you said, local stakeholders can receive the support of ShapeU, and thank you for the information you've given. Now we're going to go to the, let's say, the core of the discussion this afternoon, which is indeed looking at the draft policy recommendation. So I will repeat how we're going to proceed. You will see now on the screen a page from the menti.com platform. So what you're going to do is you're going to use the code which is there on the top of it. So you go with your computer or use smartphone or whatever, you go on your browser to menti.com, and then you will use the code which is here. After this, you will enter to the list of recommendation. And at this moment, I will give the floor to each of the different presenters for the recommendations, which you remember I said it will be divided in 3 categories. So we're going to start with the sustainable financing tools. So Paola Ferrando from GNE Finance will present the recommendation on sustainable financing tools. After each recommendation, Paola, of course, will explain why we consider it as a relevant recommendation. But after each recommendation, we will give the opportunity, let's say 30 seconds for you to write through the Menti platform some words, some sentences that will appear automatically on the screen. And then we'll give the opportunity to you to explain what you've put on the screen, or basically to do any other relevant comments. Of course, we have to bear in mind that there are 3 categories of recommendations, so we have to be short and sharp for each of them, so that we can stick to the time indeed until 3:30. So now I'm happy to give the floor to Paola Ferrando from GNE Finance, which will introduce the recommendations for the sustainable financing tool. So Paola will explain each time why we consider that relevant, and for each of the recommendation, we'll give the possibility for people to react through the menti.com. And I already would like to thank my colleague Diana Jordanova, who is with us today, who prepared the Menti and who is here to support us in case we have any issue. So Paola, are you with us?
Yeah,
Hi.
sure.
Hello,
Yeah.
good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Is it okay?
Okay, so the idea was actually that we will use the Menti. So basically, we go on the platform, and actually there's a list of recommendation there, so that people can react to that. But if you want to, you see, for instance, we have this because that would be indeed for us the most interactive thing to present. Which I suppose is the same that you wanted to present, but in another format. Is that okay?
Yeah, okay.
So let's give us just 30 seconds to go to the page where we're
But
going
I'm not in the, sorry, I'm not in the Menti. I don't know where is the.
Okay. So basically what you do is you go to menti.com on Google.
Okay.
And there you have the code that is on the screen, which is 467-99385. Join. I'm doing live with you so that we. Okay, there's some legal stuff here. Hold on.
Okay, sorry, because I didn't know this.
No worries. We are doing live training. It's anyway interactive. That's the point with Policy Lab, interaction. So
Okay, I'm going inside now, so that I can see what is happening here.
So for the moment we see this, and then maybe Diana can go to the first recommendation.
Okay. So now it's okay. Yeah. So for the first section, sustainable financial tools, we have 6 messages. The first one is centered in cost neutrality. And the idea is to prioritize the cost neutrality in renovation, affordable and social housing. to ensure that the investment are offset by the savings generating in the energy consumption bills. So that's the first one.
Okay, so maybe
and it
we, yeah, just stop for the first one for a moment, unless you want to explain more why it matters, but we do one by one.
Okay.
Okay, so now the idea was indeed to give the possibility for people to react to this one. Okay, enforce cost neutrality as an essential consideration in energy renovation of affordable social housing. So, I mean, for people, I guess people understand what cost neutrality means. Is that basically the idea that after renovation, the global costs for the tenants or residents remain the same if you take into account potential rent increase on the one hand, but a decrease of energy bills on the other hand. Is that, suppose, what we mean by that? So I see already someone putting a comment: empowerment of citizens needs. Empowerment of citizens needs strong support structures. Of course, we will give the opportunity for the people then to explain a bit more in detail. Cost transparency is a precondition. How can this be secured? So this is interesting because I don't know exactly what cost transparency would mean in that context. So maybe we can give I don't know if it's fine for you, Paula, but maybe we can give the floor to the person who put this question about cost transparency. And of course, as I said, we have a lot of recommendations, so we cannot spend too much, but at least to give one reaction to this. So maybe the person who put the point on cost transparency want to react. So open the mic and introduce yourself, and maybe we can have more. Yeah, don't know if it's feasible.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to say something, Julian, after that, because this is the message, but then this is the recommendation. And inside the recommendation about this question, there is one that is to take to make sure that we are taking collection good data from that saving, and then ensure that really the tenants are paying their saves, really their bill savings to the owner. But anyway, yeah, who introduces that can take the floor for sure.
Yeah, indeed, but I don't see anyone raising the hand for the moment.
It was me, but I just don't know how to raise the hand at the moment. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Michaela from Vienna, I put that cost transparency issue on the screen. I thought that if we talk about cost neutrality, then we need to have cost transparency before we can talk about are they neutral or not. And that's why I'm not sure because I don't have it in front of me now. But cost transparency can be ensured by different mechanisms. For instance, you have to publish all the costs, the incomes and payments for the house as a house landlord to all your tenants. And there can be also a kind of regulatory mechanism that can be addressed by people living in those houses to see if that's right. So creating more transparency will allow us to see if there is cost neutrality, of course. And it has to be clear who is stating that now the cost neutrality is given. Yeah. But because just stating it doesn't mean anything, but we have to see what is the body, what is the structure, what is the process, how to secure that.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so it's indeed good point. I mean, of course, we'll take note of everything, including what you put here on the Menti, and that will help us to finalize the recommendation. And also afterwards, feel free to send any written contributions if you have, link to a study or report. That always useful for us. So I think we need to move on to the second one because, as I said, we don't have all the time. So yeah, over to you, Paula.
Okay, so the second one is about empowering the public administration and to let them to be like law loan payment collection, introduce legal recourse in case of payment delinquents, and via the risking mechanism. I mean, like that's to empower the public authority to be as the risking tool for maybe creating a public guarantee fund, and with public budget leverage private money for retrofitting social affordable housing. And also it can be included on bill or on tax payment through the public authority. It's like it is the European model. I don't know if you know that mechanism that allowed the public authority to recoup the money from the owners, the homeowners that do the retrofitting works.
Yeah, you're talking about using the real estate tax to recoup the investment in renovation, I suppose, or something. Then you're mentioning something about payment delinquency. I think basically the idea behind, I suspect, is to make it in a way viable and for potential private, but also public authorities at some point, if there's some support in the form of subsidized loans, there must be a high likelihood that the payment will be made, so that we can indeed de-risk the investment for the private sector, but also potentially for the public sector. So we can open also the possibility to make some comments under this one. If you look at the Menti page, if you are still under the question 1, you can put next questions, and then you end up in the recommendation number 2. And any ideas about this idea of establishing administrative procedures for loan payment collection, de-risking mechanisms. I think it's important to contextualize about the fact that when we do integrated district renovation, we involve multiple multiple building owners, including public and private ones. And of course, the challenge is to find a business model that will be appealing for all the different stakeholders. So I see first comment recommendation contains too many elements. It's a bit too long. Okay, indeed, it's a good point. Maybe we'll try to find out how to summarize everything into one idea. That's something maybe to bear in mind.
Okay. Yeah, the idea of that method is to reduce the perceived risk for managing for financing providers, and to introduce the public authority in that game, and then the public budget will be the risking will work as the risking tool for leverage private investment. So that's the idea and it's the Europeans that came from USA, the PACE model, the PACE method.
Yes, the PACE. Yeah. It's indeed a big discussion about a different way to finance renovation, and one way is indeed to use also the real estate tax in a way that has been also tested to some extent in Spain as well, if I'm not mistaken, or at least to try to do that.
Yeah.
I see another comment. Sorry.
Go on.
A public guarantee fund must cover more than renovation. So new construction is possibly designed as a revolving fund to become a sustainable business model for social, public, and cooperative housing. So indeed, we see here again the idea that whatever we do, when we do a renovation, particularly at district level, public support is absolutely essential. And it's probably difficult to imagine district renovation without any form of public support. So probably the idea of having a public guarantee fund it's is a useful one. Obviously, if you talk about public guarantee funds, you also have to have some sort of fund available, although it's a guarantee, so it's not necessarily going to be activated or used, but still, I mean, you need to have enough cash in a way to set up the fund. So that's probably challenging. And the question is, at which level you set up this fund? Is it like local, a municipality, or is it like regional or national? Another good question, but also it's a good comment that we will take into account. If there's no other report or comment for this one, maybe we go to the number 3.
Okay, the number 3 is designing funding and programs for the retrofitting of affordable and social housing, targeting non-profit, local and regional entities. It is more focused to the different levels, European level, national and local level, to design a specific funding targeting a social and affordable housing. Because there are many different programs and funds, but are general, not all of them are, and it's like struggling for social and affordable providers to fit their needs in the already fundings and programs. So that's the idea, to do it more tailored also. Yeah.
Yes, so indeed a bit complementary to what has been said just before about the guarantee fund, but here it's more a bit like an investment fund. Now the question is really about whether or not we should target non-for-profit local and regional entities. When we talk about integrated district renovation, by nature, there will be also private homeowners in there. And so is it, what is exactly your thinking? Is it something that we should be only going to the non-for-profit entities, or can we find a way to also help the, let's say, an association of homeowners willing to renovate their building?
That is more focused on the non-profit, local and regional, because association, for example, are not profit. So also for them, it's that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. It's not a commercial entity.
Yeah.
It's indeed non-for-profit. Okay. Is there some people willing to send something or say something?
I'd like to mention something. Chris from Vienna, Christian Schantel from Vienna.
Yes. Okay. Hello.
Hello. Should we mention it at that point? I mean, you mentioned it later on, but to widen the state aid rules for housing subsidies would be important at that point, because, as you know, we subsidies of the European Union are only possible for nowadays for disadvantaged citizens, and not for a broad spectrum of the society. So that should be in some way be considered.
Okay, indeed. How we can summarize in in 2 words the idea here would be to have more universal approach and not only focusing on the most vulnerable ones. Is it a bit what you have in mind, Christian? Yeah. Okay. So more like indeed. I mean, if we are talking about district or neighborhoods, by definition, we have different incomes there. I mean, of course, we know we have deprived neighborhoods where the average income is very low, but it could be also more mixed income structure. So yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Christian. On putting this wider societal spectrum must be considered. It's a very often debate, universal versus targeted. I think probably the truth is in the middle, as we say, somewhere in the middle. And indeed, it should be up to the local authorities to decide what's the best approach for the neighborhood. But yes, I mean, the idea is to look at the average of the neighborhood, and rather than focusing necessarily on the people, I would say. I mean, it's very difficult to say we're going to give subsidies only to the low income people in that neighborhood. Well, actually, we need to help the whole neighborhood thriving. So thank you for the comments. I think it's very good. Encourage the creation of non-for-profit homeowners association. Yes, indeed, the governance issue is very important. Too often, particularly, let's say in Eastern Europe, we do not have the necessary governance to trigger the renovation, and that will be very useful, of course, and actually necessary for district renovation. Maybe we can go to the next one, number 4.
Okay, so next one, the 4th, is to enable local and regional administration to access to private capital funding dedicated to energy renovation of social housing, with the guarantee that this fund will not be counted toward the debt ceiling limit applicable to this administration. So the idea is the public authorities can take extra budget from the private banks or private capital, and this amount of money, it's outside, I mean, it's not counting in the debt ceiling or debt limit. So it's an extra budget targeting for affordable and social housing.
And so what, in concrete terms, or if you can take an example, what do you mean that, for instance, if a local authority get a loan from a private bank, the reimbursement of this loan should not be counted as as the public administration debt? Is it what you have in mind?
The debt limit. I mean, all administration have they can have a debt, but there are a roof, a ceiling. So the idea is to that kind of private capital, it can be in another outside that debt limit, so they can have more budget.
Okay, I wonder whether we have local authorities around the virtual table this afternoon, whether it means whether it rings the bell for you. Indeed, there's a ceiling usually for local authorities about the level of debt they can take. So what we are saying now is that for the renovation or investment in decarbonization, investment, whether it comes from the public or the private sector, should not add to the debt contracted by the local authorities. I see some comments. So we need leverage in the field of European economic governance to deblock potential public long-term investment in infrastructure. So indeed, that will be something at the European level. So we need to work around this notion of the Stability and Growth Pact. I see, maybe a hand. I think, Michaela, you would still want to say something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the recommendation as such, I would question, because it's, for me, if you're now talking about private capital funding, you're in this recommendation, we should add in the title, in fact, or we should reformulate it into to allow for long-term investments in infrastructure in the field of energy renovation, etc. But because if you focus this recommendation only on capital funding, we will leave out what is now being said in the comments. So we might need to reassess this formulation under point 4, because also, I mean, we know that if we just put it like that and not add conditionalities, we will end up in trouble, honestly, because private capital funding can be good or not. In many cases, and we are working on that, we've seen that it has done more harm than good in many cities, because it led to financialization, gentrification, and added on top money laundering issues. So there is a big topic around how do we allow private capital funding into our cities, into our projects in our cities, and we cannot let this stand there without any mention of conditionalities around that. And rather, I would focus on the SG Stability and Growth Pact.
Okay, so that's indeed a very good point. conditionality, not accepting any kind of capital funding. I mean, to avoid indeed the gentrification process that we find in many cities. So I mean, renovation comes always with the risk of renoviction, and indeed it would be a bit difficult to call for facilitating this kind of process. So we have indeed maybe to clarify some of the thing in the wording. I think it's what do you think, Paula? I think it's a fair comment.
Yeah, sure. It is. Yeah, thank you. I think also Christian wanted to talk.
Don't know. Yeah, maybe Christian. No, I don't think he doesn't. No. Okay.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
he didn't raise his hand. I see your point. So local providers can do that. But again, the problem is how to recover the money invested, as many cannot. Indeed, it's another point, which is the essential question about whether or not renovation is profitable or not. I mean, but probably this is now not really the subject of the recommendation, but this notion of a profitable renovation can raise questions by nature. If we are striving for cost neutrality, it's probably complicated to imagine something very profitable. So, and indeed, the private capital funding might not be attracted in that circumstances. Yeah. I think I see another point indeed about changing the recommendation into the long-term public investment. I think it's very, yes, thank you. I suppose it comes from you, Michela. That's very useful. We're going to take that. Maybe we go next, maybe to number 5, if you'll find.
Okay, number 5 is about circular economy. So it's to promote the circular economy actively within the construction sector and energy renovation of housing and ensure a circular economy finance. So it's how within the local authorities, regional levels can promote the circular economy with tax incentives, working with guidelines about what is a circular economy, and try to also promote innovation in the SMEs and local companies through that idea, through the principles of the circular economy, and boost that market renovation, energy renovation through that idea about reusing materials and all that stuff.
Okay. Thank you. Indeed, it's one point that we often discussed is whether or not we have a specific finance for circular economy. Knowing that circular economy is a concept which is applied to all sector of the economy, and also, of course, in the built environment. But it is always difficult to imagine to have a specific type of finance for that. So promoting circular economy, it's something that we all like to have because yes, it will reduce the amount of primary material needed to do the renovation of the district, of the neighborhood, and ideally, and knowing that it's probably going to cost more than the traditional business as usual model, ideally we would need some finance for that. Hence this idea of circular economy finance. So I'm curious. I mean, we've worked as Housing Europe, and I'm sure Jenny Finance as well. I mean, we've all worked on circular economy recently, trying to figure out, okay, what the implications are in terms of finance. Are we talking about the same thing? I mean, it's a wide area. A lot of things are under circular economy, from reuse of material onto modular housing, and other things. So, but yeah, it's good to see a bit whether you have any reaction to that. I see someone saying create fiscal benefits. I suppose fiscal, you mean tax benefits. So the fact that some of the tax that construction company have to pay would be lowered because they use or they reuse material. I see. So Michaela, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, if I just maybe, I couldn't write this now on the Menti. This is not appropriate. But I think that when I look at the recommendation more in depth, because you have these points A to D or so, yeah.
Yes.
So establishing policies granting fee exemptions to business initiatives or residential retrofitting projects that adhere to circular economy principles, I think that's a little bit too global. What we will need, I think, indeed, is something where we have more targeted support for companies that are working in the field of circular economy, and they can be public, private, or whatever, but they should contribute to a more, because circular is always very sustainable in the economic, social, and environmental fields. So we need to account for those elements and maybe go into a different view. I'm not sure if specific taxes for the construction industry, that's point C, are in this time of logistical problems, supply chain issues, are the remedy we need. Because there's already a lot of burden on the construction industry at the moment. So maybe go for a different approach and taking B and C into something new, which is more going for things like encouraging this, because we don't also have the businesses that do that. Yeah. So, and we need a lot more innovation, and I miss a little bit also the research side here. So how do we do it with circular construction in our cities? Why don't we have a really good program how to redefine construction materials, reuse all the things that we are always, throwing away? These kind of things. I would go for more innovation on the one side, and for more, I would say, the concept of corporate social responsibility added to the circular economy. But maybe leaving out those more specific granting things and tax things, because the situation in the sector is very unstable and very difficult at the moment.
Yes, okay. I mean, just bear in mind that now we are under the pillar of sustainable financing tools. So we are discussing about finance for circular economy. There's also the pillar 2 on the regulation. So we can actually talk about circular economy also from the regulatory perspective. I think it's good to maybe separate both. I mean, if local stakeholders believe that we need mandate or obligation to have a certain amount of secondary materials, stuff like that, that's more under the pillar 2. And
but then I would go, if I may, you're right, I'm sorry, I overlooked this, of course, but then I would even go and link it broader to we can find funding, but we need to create jobs, and we have to educate people for those jobs. And I'm convinced that if we, for instance, now start also combining, we are coming to an end with the European Year of Skills now, but still we know that, for instance, in the technical sector, in the engineering sector, in the construction sector, there is a lot of potential that we could activate if we just would go for more women in STEM professions.
Yeah, so indeed the skills.
And maybe we can have a little bit of a gender perspective, employment and education here, using funds that are out there with ESF, etc.
Okay, I think, we took note of that, indeed, ESF, so indeed funding, that could be good to bridge the skills gap. It could also make sense from the point of view of finance, because indeed financing the training could also make sense for this point. Plenty of comments. Thank you very much. Unless someone wants to react to what they put. If not, then we will need to move to the next one. I'm looking at the time.
Yeah, okay, that's the last one from that step. So it's establish legal mechanisms to enforce the landlord-tenant split incentives. So a split incentive, I think you know what is, like all the expenses of the houses are split between the tenants and the landlord. So both of them are responsibility of that expenses. So the landlord can be more aware and be willing to invest in his or her or their property to improve it in an energy perspective. and then both parts will take advantage of this investment. So that's the idea. It's true that necessary to ensure that both are responsible. There are a co-responsibility of this, and also that these measures are digitalized to monitoring that the investment is really achieving in an energy perspective.
Thank you. Reading it again, maybe, I mean, some people might say, maybe I tend to agree that it could go under the point of the pillar 2, because it's a legal aspect, so more related to regulatory aspect, unless we find a way to incentivize financially incentivize renovation for landlords, knowing that he will not be the one benefiting from the reduction of the energy bills, but that could be also something we indeed we can maybe precise a bit what we have in mind, because if it's only the legal mechanism, it's more maybe under the pillar 2. But if we find a way to have financial incentives for the landlords, so that they can do this renovation despite not benefiting from it, or not in the short term, because we know that in the long term, the value of the house will increase and so on. So maybe we can be more precise about this difference.
I think Michaela wants to talk.
Yes, or it is the hand of earlier. I don't know. No. We don't hear you. Yes. Yes.
No,
yes,
I'm sorry. I'm speaking all the time, but I'm really so engaged in this.
That's good.
Project. That's why
good.
I like it. So I have a lot of ideas. So I would go for maybe moving this to the regulatory chapter, because it also, in that case, also it would need to a bit of clarification. Because if you have, again, I mean, I see the policy actions and recommendations, it is not clear who is responsible for what in that recommendation. I mean, we say we supplement something and we want to establish an agreement, blah, blah, blah. But who is controlling that? It is working. It's the same question that I had before about the cost transparency. We need structures that allow for dispute settlements. We need structures that allow both parties to have some neutral judge or whatever to control those things. It can be very, very easily done. Like, we have the Gebietsbetreuung in Vienna or the quartiers management in Berlin. There are entities we have put in place in many cities where people can go to if they have issues, and it's both the landlord and the tenant. But we need to have mechanisms and processes, and that's more on the regulatory side of things, I would say. The incentive is there to do it in the moment for the private landlord if he puts money into it and if he addresses public funding. The incentive is very easy because it's a conditionality in the process of the project.
Okay, I think it makes sense. So maybe we'll put under, at least part of it under the pillar 2. I see comment. This must be articulated with national rental regulations, namely protection against evictions. That's indeed a very good point. Avoiding the split incentive is one thing, but preventing renovation is another one. So indeed, hence the importance of financial incentives for the landlord to do the renovation without then increasing in a disproportionate way the rent, and that's indeed quite important. And we go back to the cost neutrality, cost transparency issue as well. So Paula, we are coming to the end of the list. I don't know if you have any further comment before going to the pillar 2, chapter 2.
No, I think it was really good discussion. I mean, I'm like now understanding better how to address all these topics. And yeah, also will be good to see the other pillars, and then we can also see all the regulatory, all these policy recommendation in the broad way. So I think we can continue. Thank you very much for all the comments and the interventions. And if you have more, please, you can send us an email. You have all the drafts, so we will be working on it till January. So everything, every comment and other opinion are more than welcome.
Thank you. So that's very, very useful indeed. So maybe we can go now to the chapter 2 or pillar 2, as we call it. So on the regulatory aspect for a social Green Deal is how we call it. Well, I mean, Housing Europe has been tasked to develop those recommendations in particular. So I will continue to talk for this. And indeed, we have so we can go for the first recommendation, which is actually the number 7 according to the actual, I mean, the current numbering, but whatever, we will change after that. And the first recommendation is really about procurement, and I think it's one of the lessons we draw from our discussion with the stakeholders, in particular from what João presented the blueprint earlier. One of the comments we had is that SMEs in general adopt a very traditional approach to innovation, and they maybe lack the opportunity to work together with other stakeholders to go beyond the business as usual. And this is also a valid remark for the local authority, the procuring authority, whether it's due to a lack of information or because of the tradition of going for the traditional procurement through lots, looking at price mainly. I mean, there's clearly here something that the stakeholders have expressed as a barrier, as an obstacle, and that's why cooperation and partnership have to be strengthened in the procurement through, for instance, the creation of industrial clusters and the use of procurement procedures that incentivize cooperation. And that would be something useful. Here I see a word is missing, that support the vulnerable profile with vulnerable groups. I mean, the idea is to find also procurement procedure that will take into account social dimensions, so what social clause being one of them, but not necessarily. The big question was whether or not we need to change or call for a change in the procurement directive. We do not have evidence that we need to change the procurement rules, but rather that we need to make full use of them. There are plenty of different approaches and tools for the procurement that can incentivize innovation and cooperation. And the feeling is that a lot of SMEs are not aware of that, or a lot of procuring entities, including social or public housing providers, are not necessarily aware of that. So that's one of the call that we made. And some of the examples we took from the blueprints are from France, for instance, where a group of local housing companies came together to create a central purchasing body that began to buy services, advisory services, but also procuring for the renovation of a huge number of housing units in different regions in France. So this example exists, and this is something that probably stakeholders in Shapey would like to promote. I have a suggestion here to change the title into what will be then the difference? Livable neighborhoods. Yes, okay, indeed. Maybe not specifically to mention the vulnerable groups, but more neighborhoods in general, which of course will benefit to the vulnerable groups as well. Someone mentioning the new Leipzig Charter vision of just green and productive cities. Indeed, I will take note because I'm not aware of reference to procurement there, so I have to check a bit how we can make the link, but that's good.
Sorry, can I just come in because it was me? I think that using the life chapter, the new green and productive and serves the common good. And there we have a much broader concept. It's not going for some kind of vulnerable group using public procurement, because that could be a lot of things. For instance, we are trying to encourage businesses via public procurement, for instance, to create training opportunities, apprenticeships for young people. So we would tender out something, I mean, that doesn't have to be in the construction sector, to companies that allow for young people to be trained and receive a good education.
That's good. Thank you.
So that could be an example.
That's a good example.
In context, I'm a little lost. So that's one element where we say, okay, this serves, again, we're coming back, the circular economy, creating jobs, creating education, training facilities. At the same time, if we talk about livable neighborhoods in the context of the Leipzig Charter, green, just, and productive, it will allow us for a broader concept and for more, including more different aspects of society, because it would maybe afford creating jobs, allowing small companies, small businesses to be set up, all these neighborhood-based things that make a neighborhood nice.
Yes, indeed, and someone put also something around the importance of looking at other dimensions like health, environment, and of course procurement is a great tool to do that. We were mentioning before the circular economy. Obviously, the procuring entities, so the public authorities or public housing providers, can use and put in their tendering process objectives related to health, environment, circular economy, biodiversity, and that's for this a very important aspect. So I guess here there's a very important message. So thank you. Any other comment on this one? So maybe we can go, quality, question of capacity, of course. Procurement law has a chilling effect on public authorities' application of the law in procurement and of works and services. Yes, it's what I mentioned at the beginning. It certainly is complicated to use and indeed, so there's a bit of frustration in the sense that we don't use the full range of possibilities given by the procurement, to the extent that indeed some even public housing providers are wondering, okay, what does it bring to us to use the procurement rules? And I think it's always good to remind of what it can bring, particularly this idea of channeling the investment into something that we collectively consider as beneficial, indeed, whether it's health, it's a circular economy, whatever, and making sure we do it with the best value for money, but also including other dimension, which is the point with procurement. And also doing this in a cooperative way, or in a, let's say, not cooperative because it sounds like cooperative, but more in a cooperation way. Also developing new technologies through the innovation partnership and framework agreement. So I think it's a very good point. So thank you for that. Maybe we can go to the next one, which actually is just the second one of this pillar, which we hope to summarize into 2 recommendations, but it's also very wide. The second one referred to something which is very topical, which is the implementation of the EU directives to promote social housing, energy rehabilitation, and scalability at the district level. So here were plenty of things, but looking at what is there in terms of legislation, the question will be for the local authorities and, well, national authorities and local authorities to implement it in a way that will help the district level approach. And here I wanted to refer to something which is being discussed at the moment between the European Parliament and the member state as regard the EPBD, so Energy Performance of Building Directive. It's under negotiation, so it's not final, but we hope it will be accepted. The Parliament would like to promote integrated renovation programs. So basically, the Shape EU approach, and they want to have an article in the directive which says that member states may empower regional and local authorities to identify integrated district in order to roll out integrated renovation programs. Another point in the directive, and for this there's quite consensus, is the importance of having the one-stop shop. So the idea of having a point of reference for a wide range of stakeholders to go and ask questions about technical aspects or financial aspects. And this is very relevant when we look at neighborhoods with a high share of private homeowners, which need to be guided both at a technical but also the financial level. So currently being discussed in the EPBD are those two elements. Will, if they are accepted and put into the law, then it will be very, very useful for the approach at district level. The other two directives mentioned here, the EED and the RD, so Energy Efficiency Directive and Renewable Energy Directive, they have been published in the official journal, so the revised version. So now they are entering in the stage of implementation, transposition by the member state, and they also contain aspects which are relevant for the district approach. For instance, the EED mentioned in its Article 25 the importance for regional and local authorities to have local heating and cooling plans, at least in municipalities having a total population higher than 45,000. Those plans should at least provide an estimate of the potential for increasing efficiency, including district heating readiness and renewable energy in heating and cooling. So I think it's very relevant also for the district approach that this article of the ED in a way oblige member state to help regional and local authorities to prepare for heating and cooling plans. And of course, district renovation combined with the heating and cooling plans make obviously sense. So we hope that will be the opportunity to do also district renovation. The same goes for the Renewable Energy Directive, which mentioned the obligation to have a minimum amount of renewable energy produced on site. So this is also something that will urge local authorities to think about where we're going to put our PVs or where we're going to put our, let's say, geothermal powered district heating. That's also I think something that could be very helpful. Basically, the idea that choosing the right combination of measures at the local level is the key for the district heating and the fair energy transition. So I think some people react to fact monument protection should be considered. So yes, indeed, in general, this is the monument, the building with the historical heritage are exempted from many of the obligations under the directives. And then I see this is more top-down. Do we have also some bottom-up element in this? Feedback at the local level of those EU policies, break prices, what works, what doesn't work. Okay, very good point. I don't know who says that. If someone wants to react to that. And so the feeling is, I suppose, is that it's a recommendation which is a bit too top-down and we need to look at the local practices. But I think in our mind, it's exactly that. I mean, we want to make sure that the EU legislation will allow for these good practices to be implemented. So looking at what works, what doesn't work, without having a bias towards one specific technology or one specific, let's say, strategy. So I think it's really, I mean, the essence of Shape EU is really that. So maybe we should clarify this in the recommendation. Okay, I have look at the time and we need to go on. So Now I'll give the floor to the great James Thorogood from Energy Eurocity. Sorry, to maybe go through the recommendation on the promotion of local partnerships and dialogue at the local level. So good afternoon, James, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Greetings from a very chilly Budapest. My name is James. As Julian pointed out, I work for Eurocities, and we have been working on this section of the policy recommendations with the promotion of partnerships and dialogue at the local level. So let's have a look at the first recommendation. Yeah, so the reason we need this is there doesn't appear to be a high level commitment to renovation at the EU level. I find quite strange. It's generally accepted that reducing demand for energy is the only long-term sustainable way of reducing energy costs. And this, plus the broader societal benefits of investing in district renovation, is it's a brilliant way of making the benefits of the energy transition a reality for social housing tenants. And accordingly, there could be a signal from the EU to all stakeholders. The renovation according to this kind of approach is really a top priority. And the specific ask in this regard is that there should be an annual renovation summit with relevant commissioners, mayors, and ministers. So, any comment on that? Any feedback on that recommendation? What would you like to say?
I wanted to tap, see, Michaela, sorry.
Yes, no, sorry for being the one always, but just to add on that, I think that's a very important point, really. And I just wanted to inform you, if maybe not everybody is aware of that, there was just a meeting of the EU ministers responsible for housing and those are responsible for urban development in Gijón in November. And they decided to have a new partnership on housing and decarbonization of housing and heating and cooling plants on local level. So that's one thing. I wanted to add it already to the former point. But the other thing is that, of course, that high-level political recognition can only take place in a format, or should only take place in a format that is already out there. And that would be, in my view, the so-called housing focal points. So we should not reinvent the wheel. We should use the things that are out there already. And the housing focal points are the preparatory level on ministerial level for the meetings of the housing ministers. So I think that maybe using a little bit more those structures and institutions that are already out there would be a very efficient way to also guarantee that we look into the renovation of the housing stock.
Again, just so it's clear from my understanding, Michaela, how would that work in practice? So in terms of using those structures, how do you see that working?
I mean, I can recommend you to look at the recommendations of the housing partnership of that we led together with Housing Europe and many others on this, where we clearly stated that we need to have a stable monitoring system for housing issues on EU level and on member states level. And that is that recommendation foresees regular meetings of the housing ministers, but also a clear framework for all the topics that should be looked at. Yeah, okay. I can share that later on if you want.
No, that's fair. Thank you. That's very good. Any other comments?
I see Nelson. Please introduce yourself, Nelson, please.
Okay, I'm Nelson Brito, architect and energy efficiency expert, currently working on energy poverty European project. Are you listening? Can you please confirm? Okay, so very bad connection. Sorry, I'm not showing video. cannot start with you. So I think that the previous comments had something in common, which was we should not let the European Energy Performance Directive and the Energy Directive transform energy poverty into ghetto approaches, because they are targeting the worst performing buildings and the poorest people, but just by the side, there are lots of people who are also in the brink of becoming energy poor because of the transition. And so we should avoid this ghetto approach. And like you said in most of the comments before, we should be more inclusive on the community approach. Just one point about the contracting. Simple solutions like putting circular, for instance, imagine an insulation. If you have the municipality giving you insulation that is pre-financed, then that insulation will be used. If you have the small company having to go and buy somewhere who's going to distribute, etc., it's not going to happen. So we should really encourage municipalities to be the fulcral points of these circular changes. And yes, it must be local. So thank you.
Thank you, Nelson. It sounds like it's for the comments for the section 2 on regulation, which are actually very, very relevant comment. Thank you for that. Yeah, James, floor is yours now. Get back. Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on to the next one. I think, as Michaela just mentioned, actually referred to the ICHON meeting of ministers, and this is an opportunity to reiterate the implementation of those recommendations and revision of the EU state aid rules. Now, the reason for this is that improving the quality and boosting the supply of social and affordable housing is indeed the key priority of the Affordable Housing Initiative. And indeed, one of the challenges identified by the project in doing integrated district renovation is integrating different income profiles within districts and benefiting from the related social cohesion that in part results as a consequence of that. And the aim is that a broader, giving public authority broader scope to act on housing will further support the development or implementation of integrated district renovation and lighthouse districts. So what do you think about that? Oh, yes, sorry, the specific request then revise the state aid decision 2012 and also a capacity building for public authorities and the implementation of state aid rules. Over to you.
That's if I may, it's also possible to have this recommendation under the chapter 2 for regulation. I mean, it could be also, yeah, thinkable if we want to have a let's see. But the content is obviously very relevant. Yeah. I see. It's Michaela.
Yeah, it's just we could also give it to the financing part because it will deblock a public investment potential.
Also, yes.
Yeah, so we can. I mean, we can play around with this, and I mean, this is not only the ministers; it's also Eurocities, Housing Europe, CMR, IET. It's a long story. It's 10 years, I think, now that we are fighting for a change of that decision and that formulation, and I think it's appropriate to have it in our recommendations.
Okay, maybe we can go to the next one.
Yeah, so there should be a systemic approach to involving cities in the implementation of EU policies relevant to integrated district renovation. And the example I have here in the document which was sent out is the development of long-term renovation strategies. Local stakeholders are not required formally to participate in the development of these strategies, which is strange because it's often the local level which bears responsibility for the implementation of the related objectives and actions as part of those strategies. So if it's not possible to achieve this formally, there should be an idea of, or rather, there should be implemented a partnership in practice, specifically when it comes to the building renovation plans, which are envisaged by the revision of the European Performance of Buildings Directive, and also the implementation of the Social Climate Fund regulation, which I believe the social climate plans will be expected to be developed in 2025, 2026. Should I mention a bit about the Social Climate Fund regulation, Julian? I think that would be helpful.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, if it helps to explain why the recommendation is this one.
Yeah, sure. So the Social Climate Fund arises from an extension of the emissions trading scheme to buildings and transport, and the aim is that the funds which result from that extension will be provided to member states for, among other things, energy efficiency investments in buildings, specifically for vulnerable citizens. And what we're saying here is that really the local level cities should be involved in the development of those social climate plans. So, yeah, carry on. Yeah.
Very good point, yeah. That's very good point indeed. It's not a given, of course, but because the Commission expects the member state to submit to the social climate plans, but the member state are supposed to consult widely. I mean, a wide range of stakeholders. I mean, the issue is that cities are just seen as a group of stakeholders, not really as the main implementers in a way of the legislation. So that's indeed something which I think makes totally sense.
So here, comment here, the focus could be wider, not only district renovation, but other topics, which is interesting. Would anybody care to explain? If you made that comment, would you like to explain a bit more about what you mean by that?
Yes. Hi, James. I'm Cornelia from ECTP. I was thinking about, you mentioned the European Social Climate Fund, I think. And I think the district could also say something about CO2 emissions or energy flexibility. So I wouldn't focus only on renovation. So I think they should also have the capacity to talk about other topics. So I didn't really know what topics, but I think CO2 emission reductions, energy flexibility, circularity, for example, could also come from the local level.
Okay, thank you, Cornelia. Central systemic approach be built from the particular to the general. Okay, Julien, have we got time to go into that, or should we move on to the next one?
I think I'm sorry, but we need to go to next one. But I think it's very interesting comment. I think we got the essence of it, I suppose.
I think we've probably already covered this
yes.
in one of your recommendations, so we could probably move on to the next one.
Yes, totally, yeah.
And in fact, the specific recommendation from here is that there should be a golden rule with regard to local investment in social and climate infrastructure, where it's not counted as debt as part of the Stability and Growth Pact. And I believe that we have already covered that as part of the section on sustainable financing. So we could skip that as well, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is very general, this recommendation, and targeted towards the national level. The recommendation on energy poverty is in itself very general in the sense that it covers many areas related to the legal framework, the definition of energy poverty, indicators, structural measures, trust engagement, energy efficiency, etc. So here it may be more appropriate to make a specific call for the comment on governance, which the recommendation makes. Okay, yes, fantastic. Yeah, and enhance it by applying a gender perspective.
Yeah, if I may, I'm not aware exactly of the of the content of a recommendation on energy poverty, but from a social, cooperative, and public housing perspective, clearly energy poverty is the result of multiple factors, and fighting energy poverty will be the result of a strategy that go into different dimensions. Of course, reducing energy demand by having more energy efficient homes is central, but not only. And I think some of the comment made earlier by Christian from Vienna and Nelson calling for let's say a generalist or universal approach, and not necessarily falling into, in a way, the trap of only focusing on the worst performing buildings or only the lowest income people, because otherwise, indeed, we might end up creating some sort of situation where people are locked into that situation, and without really having a neighborhood which is, where people are proud to live in. So I think it's important to have this wider perspective, while of course ensuring that we fix the problem, the most acute problem, but going also a bit wider.
Fantastic. I think it's Michaela who added those comments there. So we'll certainly have a look at that and integrate that into the recommendation. I will certainly look at making more. Yeah, so we should certainly look at making it more specific. I think it's very general at present. So if there's no more comments, I'll move on to the final two.
I don't know if if we have it on maybe we don't.
We had 16, I think.
Yes.
And that was the last one, wasn't it?
Okay.
Or maybe not. Let me see.
No, I mean we have a two.
Oh, no, you're right. Sorry, I just by memory I thought no, we have it also on mentioned. Sorry, we are sharing again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no. And thanks
just I really thought they were 6. Sorry. No, you're right. Sorry, James.
Yes, so the message here, so this relates to the European Investment Bank, and maybe just be more appropriate in the earlier section on sustainable financing. And we know the European Investment Bank already does very good work. It has clear objectives to finance social and climate infrastructure, and from my experience, very good technical assistance programs. I'm always a little bit surprised there isn't more take-up of these opportunities. And obviously, the lending being counted as debt as part of the Stability and Growth Pact calculations, and the guarantees which need to be provided to access that finance is obviously an issue. But I mean, it's clear there should be certainly stronger and regular dialogue at a very high level with the European Investment Bank on strategic foresight, strategic planning, and really the support to cities to finance climate and social infrastructure. So anybody like to make any comments on that? Yeah, that's clear. So be more precise. Long-term, reliable private investments, more sustainable financing models. Okay, that's very clear. Thank you.
I see Michaela raising a hand.
Yeah, oh, okay, let's go for it.
But I think it's important because the EIB was very interested in the creation of revolving funds. So these are systems where the money stays in models where the money stays clearly in the system. Any money that goes into the system is reinvested and kept in the system, and it's very good for the public budget, because if you leave it in the system, you're creating more options to renovate, to build new, to maintain whatever is needed. To all of this, I mean, this is the classical Austrian model, yeah, of financing of social and affordable and for cooperative housing. But it's a clever investment. It's a clever business model because it's good for the public budgets. So we should not only be, focusing on it's either public or private investment. There is also a third sector, and it would be appropriate to mention that there are models out there that have been used traditionally also by cooperative banks, cooperative housing associations, and this is the core of, and this is the heart where we all come from, in a way, and we should really make a strong point on also financing models for the third.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, to have that specificity, I think is very important. I think it's also important to be clear, and perhaps it's something should be added to the question on sustainable financing, is that there is a need for subsidy, and subsidy isn't a very fashionable thing to talk about at the moment. So the question is how can you use subsidy in a way to help establish the revolving funds? I think that's an important topic, an important issue. Yeah. Does anybody else have any more comments before we move on to the final one? Fantastic. Okay, so this is the last recommendation for today. So trust is a topic that's appeared throughout as a sort of a key ingredient of integrated district renovation. Be that between project promoters, residents, or finance providers, investors, and project promoters. And what we see is, one of the key sort of benchmarks for success of these projects is the energy saving. It's actually related back to the issue of cost transparency and really what the benefits are in terms of savings on, for example, with projects and the energy savings which are generated from these projects, and cost transparency in terms of housing costs more generally. But this addresses the question of energy performance, and really that there is the opportunity now. Technologies are available in the marketplace to provide a very clear idea of what the real outcome is of investments in renovation. However, there isn't a really well-established certification scheme to give legitimacy to these technologies, and therefore provide a proper basis for establishing the trust and the transparency needed to create trust between stakeholders in renovation projects. So, yeah, anybody like to make any comment about that?
Sorry, it's me. I put the wrong button. I wanted to send a comment, but I sent too early, so I put the A. Well, what I wanted to write is basically the challenge for local authority to use the adequate methodology in terms of cost-benefit analysis. It's a very complicated, because we know quite well about the costs. We know how much it will cost to renovate one neighborhood, one building, but we only make hypotheses about the benefits in the short term and even more in the long term. And yet this is extremely important, and probably the most important thing when we discuss about residents. What matters for them, and basically the most tangible thing for them, is actually comfort. Is of course reduction of energy bills, but it's also about the fact that they will be able to dedicate their income to something else. Also something related to employment potentially, and this is very difficult to measure. We know the limit about the cost-benefit analysis, including this question of the discount rate, the net present values of future benefits. It's complicated, and yet this is the only way probably to take the right decision. So yeah, I think this is one of the most important recommendation when we do for district renovation. So we need to look at what exists, the kind of methodology that the academic world has developed, and try to make the best of it. I see some commentary here. A Smarter Together project in Vienna. So please send to us more information about the Smarter Together. I see Nelson is raising his hand. Is it Nelson? You raise your hand?
Yes. Sorry, because I'm using the phone and I cannot do both to be able to communicate. I completely agree with you about the certification systems. I'm really hoping that the minimum energy performance standards do not come through. Otherwise, we will all turn to Trump. And I think in the way you formulate the question, there's something missing, which is the ways to create win-win circumstances, either by engaging communities by other interests they have in their area, because sometimes they need a children's park or something like that. We must build on more than energy to be able to engage people, But on the same time, we must give some assurance to the companies that are going to play that they will not be in trouble if something goes wrong. And I think, again, municipalities could have some risk management capacity to overcome this. But please emphasize the idea also of win-win approaches. Everyone has got to win in this game. Okay, there are some losers, of course, the petrol companies and stuff like that, but we must find a way for the guy that supplies the gas to the area. We must train him to go to installing heat pumps. We must find a way to put collective renewable energy instead of individual. So always win-win approaches to demonstrate that, okay, if we act together, it's less expensive. I will share you in the chat something I made in for Vinci in 2016, and you can take a look. We had that approach. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nelson. It's very interesting. I'll be looking forward to read what you put in the chat. We've got other comments here regarding Smarter Together. Yes, so we've got the link there. That's fantastic. Thank you. And then also the role of mediation in these processes and the structure and how that is regulated. Have we got time to expand on that, Julien, or is it time to close the meeting?
I think, unfortunately, it's time to close the meeting. This is the tough rule of the game, unfortunately, time. But I mean, we took a note of all of it, and we'll make some research to make sure that we have the evidence and the supporting references for that. So thank you, James. We close the part on the local partnership, and we close indeed now this session. Time to wrap up and to thank you for your active participation. I think that was a very interesting exercise. Time flies and time flat, but it's a good sign. I mean, we are indeed quite passionate about it. But important for us is to make sure that the recommendation drawn, the lessons drawn from the Shape EU project will make sense for local authorities. And we also understand that it integrated renovation plan sounds in a way sometimes obvious and simple, but in fact it's extremely complicated by the fragmented nature of the governance and of the funding streams and of all the different aspects that we want to tackle when we do integrated renovation plans. That's why Shape EU is so important, because it's about bringing together the knowledge that we have and supporting, incentivizing the local authorities. And we hope also that with the policy recommendation, we will incentivize and urge the policymakers at all relevant levels to produce the most reasonable and more reasonable policies to support that. In terms of the next step, as we said at the beginning, we will have a final conference on the 21st of January where we're going to present the final recommendations based on today's discussion, but also from today until the beginning of February, we will continue to consult stakeholders, including the consortium partners, Shape EU consortium partners, so that we have a high quality set of recommendations. So I'd like to thank everybody. On behalf of the Shape EU consortium partners, was very useful. And indeed, Michaela is asking whether we're going to receive minutes or new version of the document of today. Yes, the list of participants of today will receive in due time another version of the recommendation. And hopefully we will have the possibility, you will have the possibility to make another round of comments, but of course we will have to remain within the limit of the time that we can dedicate it to that. So, but clearly the list of participants of today will receive another draft of the recommendations, and the recording of today will also be available. So thank you to everyone. Wishing you a great end of the day, and hopefully see you soon.